Maybe to get started, what are your kind of thoughts on how the world is currently looking and where we're headed right now?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's almost like a K-shaped world. There's a bifurcation that's difficult to reconcile. On the one hand, yes, we are in the middle of some incredible chaos. I'm a big fan of fourth turning theory, and I was just looking at Neil and Strauss and uh, looking at their concept of the fourth turning as far as an end game, like the last gasp of the crisis mode. And what's interesting is that, they were talking about the fourth turning in 97 when the book came out. And they also accurately predicted that the start of it would probably be in 8 to 10 years, which was the great financial crisis. And I would argue that really, for those people who think that was the crisis and the end game, that's grossly mistaken. Typically, in a seculum, 80 to 100 years, which is the period that they use in the theory, you're looking at probably the last 15 to 20 years, maybe 25 years, which would put us into around 2030 timeframe. And I think that in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see this crisis come to a head. And remember that normally this is a total reset. It's a foundational change in the system. In the US, you can think of it, for us, it was the American Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Great Depression leading to World War II, and then we're in it now. And so, what that makes it very difficult to try to zoom out and stay focused on Bitcoin and your own monetary program, which you've got installed to protect you from this period. So, I mean, if you look on the outside world, yeah, it's incredibly chaotic. I'd have to say AI, this digital revolution that's taking place at the same time as the crisis mode is ending, is just it's more kindling really for the fire. But as far as Bitcoin, I'd have to say that everything that I follow, my thesis on Bitcoin has not changed. If I'm correct in that we're at the end game of a fourth turning, a crisis, the winter, if you will, if we're really here and this is what's going to play out in the next three, probably no more than 5 years, then you must have an understanding of how to protect yourself in that period. For me, it's Bitcoin, it's hard assets. I've even held some gold again, which is unusual for me. Uh, I, I think that you must have things that the government cannot print right now.
Why did you go back to gold a little bit?
I ended up rotating out of strategy stock some time ago. And so I had excess cash, and the way things were going and the handwriting was on the wall for me anyway, I felt more comfortable holding a little bit of reserves in gold. Now, right now, it's going to sound like an idiot because I've rotated back into strategy. I mean, it got so cheap there that I couldn't help myself. And so I rotated money back into it. But, I took a good profit on my holdings. I was into strategy for years. And so, I mean, I have no complaints. I just think that right now it's very important for people to understand that you've got to protect yourself. I mean, no one is going to do this for you. If you look at what's going on right now, you're probably watching maybe the world's last armed conflict that is going to be truly using conventional weapons. Uh, I mentioned AI. AI is going to be, it's on the battlefield now with Maven through Palantir. They are basically using AI for targeting. And I think that they came up with like 5,000 targets on the first 1 to 2 days of strikes, based primarily on AI-driven battlefield assessment. And if you look at where AI is going as far as intelligent warfare, if you will, and the fact that we are now in a bottleneck at the Strait of Hormuz, if you just zoom out and think about where this is going in the future, we we've always known, and the Strait of Hormuz has always been a bottleneck. I was there 50 fucking years ago in an F-18, and it was a bottleneck then, and it is one today. That's not going to change. The U.S., for some reason, did not anticipate how easy it was for Iran, which coastal waterway is along that strait, for them to actually create havoc inside that narrow confined. Those ships, Robin, they've only got a 2 nautical mile entry and exit corridor that they use. You can't put in Navy ships. You can't put in a destroyer inside the strait and expect it to be able to protect itself. Naval warships need sea room to maneuver. And now with the idea of AIs and drones, and even AIs using autonomous weapon systems that are coming very soon, meaning submarines, even ski-doos of all things, it's going to be very difficult to keep choke points like that open.
The few, what are the implications of this war of Iran?
You know, man, it's so far-reaching. It's difficult to. I think what you need to do is you just have to go back to first principles and understand what oil is. Oil is really like the lifeblood of the world right now. It's like blood, and it is the base layer to everything that's happening, not just physical products. You need oil to produce things. Oil, whether it's building tires, whether it's building paper, plastic products, it's a base layer. But on top of that, it funds things like fertilizer. Okay, just as an aside, I'll tell you where this is going. As this seeps out, as these cost increases that are coming are seeping out into the economy, we're going to feel the effects, consumers everywhere. Fertilizer, as I mentioned, urea, ammonia, both of them are throttled right now out of the strait. I think in the U.S., ammonia prices went up from the Middle East to like 92% right now. That's going to go into all the farmers. Diesel's approaching $5 a gallon, or will be soon, for farmers out there. And this is when they're going to be planting. All these things are going to have carryover effects. If they don't get this under control soon, and if oil continues above $100 a barrel Brent, we are going to see a major recession across the planet, and it's going to affect everything. And that's just one narrow confine that I'm discussing. I haven't even talked about LNG, the liquid natural gas, or the constraints to the Asian countries that are coming. This has far-reaching consequences. And again, it doesn't feel like the U.S. has thought of the second-order effects that are going to come out of this war. And I just go by what they told us 6 months ago. You remember, Iran's nuclear capability was destroyed. Trust me, anybody that tells you otherwise is lying. So I don't understand many of the strategic goals of this particular campaign. But I will tell you another thing. It's adding about $1 billion to our deficit every day. And the U.S. military must have that funded. This is not part of the defense authorization bill, which was up around $900 billion. And the Trump administration says they want to up it to $1.5 trillion fucking dollars or something. There are going to be some consequences to this. There already is. I'm sure you saw the print today on the PPI. I think it's an annualized 3.4% inflation rate. That is probably from these effects that we're seeing right now. If it continues another 30 days, I don't know where this is going to go.
And I think there's a good chance that it will reach another 30 days. I think we often, I have a hard time believing that it's over like next week on Wednesday, something like that.
That's another thing, talking about second order effects and consequences. Again, it's, battlefield tactics evolve very quickly, especially in this digital age, especially with AI. But it is possible that the U.S. military has not been able to adapt as quickly or to understand where this is going. I mentioned something as stupid as like a ski-doo. I don't know if you know what that is, but I mean, it's basically one person sits on top of a little motorized seagoing craft. And well, they've been weaponizing those. The U.S. has got a program where they've been experimenting with them. One of these ski-doos or sea-doos or whatever you want to call them, washed ashore outside of Turkey in the Black Sea, still had explosives connected to it. You know how cheap that is to weaponize something like that and to put it into an autonomous weapon system where you release it and it's on its way? Just just look at some of the autonomous weapon system technology that's being pursued by Anduril, which is a company here in the U.S. Yeah, exactly. These are for snows, but they make them for waterborne applications too. I just always called them a ski-doo from years ago. There you go. I don't know what they call them now. Sea-doo is one of them. Anyway, the bottom line is that these weapon platforms are extremely cheap. And how do you stop something like that? That coastal waterway along Iran's coast is very long, and you can put people over the top of that all you want. But even looking at the Shahed 131 and the 136 drone that Iran is using to great success, those things are cheap. I think the 131 is probably a $10,000 to $20,000 drone. Maybe the 136 is up to 50 grand. They actually can assemble them in modular components, and you can put them in the back of a small pickup truck and actually hidden, drive to a site, assemble them in about 3 hours, and then launch them. And what are we firing against them? When you look at the Patriot missile systems, you look at some of the cruise missiles that we're firing, Tomahawks, $4 million a piece here, depending upon their production run. And we're not making enough to replace them. I know they're telling us they are, but that's not true. They are not making enough weapons to replace these smart weapons. And then we haven't even talked about the war's effects on rare earth minerals. Everything that we want to replace, every single thing that you see being fired right now to be replaced requires rare earth minerals. And we don't fucking have them. China's got the largest reserves on planet Earth, 44 million tons of proven reserves. The next is Brazil at 22. I don't know what we've got, maybe like 2.5 million. That's it in the U.S. Greenland, by the way, that's got like 1.5, so it's not a lot. Venezuela has about the same, maybe a little bit more. But the problem is that we don't have the refining capability. China right now is producing 80 to 90% of all the refined rare earth minerals. And they just came out recently, just a few months ago, they said, hey, we're going to start putting export controls on those who are using these for offensive military capability. So what are we going to do here if this war continues? How do we get out of this? How do we call it success for this mission? We've already decapitated the leadership. I suppose we were already told once before that we had decapitated their ability to wage nuclear war. So what are we trying to do here? And what is it going to cost us going forward? I guess the good news is for me and for yourself, people like us that are trying to protect our families and our loved ones from this, we're involved and we are understanding that we need hard assets the government cannot print over the next 6 months. And that for me is primarily Bitcoin. That is going to be the winner in my mind from this.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, like, what is the implication for Bitcoin? Because I think a neutral global asset will always benefit from those things. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, we don't want Bitcoin to be adopted because of war, but I think it's the reality of it.
There was some groundbreaking stuff that just came out here that Iran is letting the passage of Chinese ships along their coastline and out of the strait. And what they are demanding is to be paid in yuan, the Chinese currency. So on the one hand, you look at the petrodollar system, which has been in place now since Bretton Woods, really, though, not in effect probably until the late 50s, fully in effect. And the petrodollar system itself, after Bretton Woods failed in the early 70s with 71 and the Nixon global decision to end gold repatriation, that set us up for a new system, the petrodollar system. But that system is in probably not peril, but it is definitely weakening in these, in these conditions. Look at what we did to relieve Russia from some sanctions so that we could get oil out to the rest of the world. This is not good for that petrodollar system, but at the same time, just look at what I said for a moment ago there. So Iran gets a bunch of bags of renminbi or yuan, big deal. If I gave you an opportunity to hold dollars or yuan, what would you probably pick?
Dollars.
Probably be dollars. If I gave you a chance to hold something for a long period of time as a store of value, and I gave you a choice between dollars and Bitcoin, I know what you would say. Let's just take that to the step further. These countries are beginning to realize, but they do not grasp yet. In Iran, their populace understood the importance of Bitcoin. I'm sure you saw the spikes in Bitcoin's price when the bombs started falling for Iranians. Bitcoin is durable, divisible, fungible, and its greatest property is that it has final settlement in digital at the speed of light and cannot be reversed. It is the ideal medium to conduct international settlement in times like these. These countries just don't either have the ability to store, mine, or understand the power of Bitcoin in this turmoil. But I believe someday that they will. And I think that perhaps based upon some of the things that have come out of Russia in the last 2 years, that they are definitely starting to understand it.
It's fascinating because I think Bitcoin is headed in a very volatile, but I think a very good period of time. I think it will be. I think in 5 years, if you look back, and probably even earlier than that, it will be so obvious that Bitcoin in 2026 was the best possible asset to buy. If you look at risk versus reward, look at volatility versus the reward you can possibly have, because there's almost no risk. I'm always hesitating and saying no risk. I don't see really risk, but I want to include the outer edge cases. And the reward is just like freaking amazing. Like this is an asset that could reach 200, 300, 400 trillion dollar market cap and take over the world. And this is just like such an outsized return bet you can take. It's just amazing that people don't see it in 2026. The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called micro-seed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With micro-seed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. You get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.